everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I'm one of your hosts, Sheldon McKinney.
And I'm your other host, Ruth Ann Fink.
And today we have with us Mr. Jeff Hayes. He is a legendary Kentucky agriculture teacher. He spent his career teaching in Eastern Kentucky, and he built a powerhouse program in Rockcastle County. And upon his retirement, the Kentucky FFA Foundation was lucky enough to see if he would come and serve as a mentor and coach in the ag ed profession. And he has been what we call our program development specialist for the last 5 years. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Hayes. I want people to know a little bit about who you are. I think people might recognize you and know you, but they may not know a whole lot about you. So will you tell us a little bit about your ag ed origin story? How did you find ag ed, and what led you on this lifetime of teaching agriculture?
Well, I grew up here in Rockcastle County on a small farm. I come from a really large family. I had 8 brothers and sisters. They were 9 of us total, and I was second to youngest, and grew up on a farm. So agriculture had been part of my life, all of my life. And taking agriculture in high school was a natural fit for me. I was able to find a place to call home, a place I felt comfortable in. Unlike most people, Sheldon, I knew from my sophomore year in high school on that I wanted to be an ag teacher. Lots of people struggle to decide what they want to do, but early on, I thought, gosh, this is what I want to do. I mean, I could see the impact it was having in my life and the lives of my classmates. I thought, that's something I want to be a part of going forward. Yeah. So I decided early on I wanted to go into ag education. I was lucky enough to be involved in FFA. I'm a local, state, and level, and was a state officer, which was life-changing stuff for me. I was able to go to University of Kentucky. Without agriculture at FFA, I don't think that would have ever happened. Dr. Jay Jackman years ago recruited me to go to UK, and I'm always grateful for him for doing that. I don't really know, other than being a state officer, why he did that, because there wasn't anything special about me coming out of Rockcastle County, but I was thankful for that. And ag and FFA allowed me to go and do and see things otherwise this whole country board would not have been able to do. At UK, gosh, I just had some legendary ag ed professors. I know you had Dr. Coffey there at Western, Sheldon, and he was wonderful. I had Dr. Rodney Tullock, Dr. Charles Byers. I mean, they were just unbelievable. I cannot put into words how good they were. And that just inspired me even more. That all I've ever really wanted to do was be an ag teacher. You know, other people have other things they want to do. To me, I just want to be an ag teacher. And I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to do that. It was a wonderful career for me, and so appreciative of my time in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's so special. And Mr. Hayes, we've had some students on this podcast, and we hear that every once in a while from, maybe they're not sophomores, but they're saying from a young age, I want to be an ag teacher. And that's pretty powerful. And we hope to see more and more of that.
Yes.
And showing young people that it is a great career that you can have, and a well-respected career. And we want to talk about teaching agriculture a lot today on this podcast, and just why it's an honorable profession. We say that a lot, but I can't wait to hear from you and your explanation of why it's an honorable profession. So let's just set the table for this conversation and tell us about your ag ed philosophy and how you use the 3-circle model when you were an ag teacher.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ruth Ann. I am a believer in the 3-circle model. I think it's what makes ag ed different, what makes it, and frankly, in my opinion, I know I'm biased better than other areas of study, but to be able to combine the classroom, the FFA, the SAE all into one it's just huge. And I think it separates lots of ag programs from other programs in the school. It allows you to do and make connections with your kids that other programs simply don't have a chance to do. But I do think it all starts in the classroom. I think good teaching is what it's all about. I think teaching from beginning to end and every class, every day is so important. Nearly any teacher can prepare a great lesson if they think the principal's coming to observe them. But that's not the great teacher, in my opinion. The great teacher is a teacher that teaches every day in every class from beginning to end to every kid. And that's hard to do. You've got to know what to teach, and you've got to be disciplined enough to make changes if you see things not going well. And early in my career, you know, like most young teachers, I was just trying to survive from one day to the next. You know, ag teachers have so many different preps. Of course, I started back before internet, back before cell phones and all those kinds of things. And, you know, I was just trying to have stuff. But after you teach a while, you can accumulate and make those things better and really, really have focus on what you're teaching. But I do think in the classroom is the most important part. I'm an FFA nerd. I'm a believer in it. I mean, I can remember the last time I took off my FFA jacket, I cried. I mean, I remember for sure. But I do think FFA in some cases is not used really like it ought to be. I think FFA should be part of your classroom. I think it should grow out of what you're doing in the classroom. I think if you're want to do all these contests, that's great, but that's only great if it relates to what you're teaching in the class. If you're not teaching it, I don't think you should enter it. But FFA, in my opinion, the purpose of FFA from a teacher perspective is to enhance your instruction by motivating your kids. I cannot tell you the number of hours my students spend practicing and working and studying, trying to win a contest, when really all they were doing was trying to master that content I taught class. Now, we all know that the value of FFA as far as the leadership, speaking skills, and that's all true. But I think as a teacher, it is a tool for you to use to enhance your instruction. And I think you can do that if you utilize it correctly. But it's got to be part of your program. Too many teachers make it something separate, something different. And I think it needs to grow out of your classroom. I really believe SAE is an integral part of that three-circle model. It gives those students a chance to apply what you're teaching in the classroom, give them those real-world experiences, allow them to make some career decisions. I had a young lady once that wanted to be a vet. I always have a lot of students as freshmen that wanted to be a vet. Well, we got her an internship at our local vet's office, but after a month or so, she realized she didn't like the sight of blood. So it made her realize she did not need to be a veterinarian. She went on to be an elementary school teacher and a really good one. But that, you know, that was her SAE, and it was good for her. It allowed her to see something she didn't want to do. But for a lot of students, it allows them to see things that they do get to do. And children, I want to commend the foundation. I ain't this year teacher after teacher talking about the value of those SAE grants and getting those kids started, allow them to have a chance to get their SAE rolling. So I think that's really good. But I'm a real believer in the three-circle model. I think, in my opinion, classroom is most important, and I think FFA and SAE should grow out of that.
So give us an example of really what that looks like. You know, if you are a new teacher or you're envisioning what this could be, let's use small engines, for example, your small engines class. How are you teaching that content? Did you pick your 4 favorite kids to be on the team and practice after school? How do you make that work for a teacher? And how does it make your life easier as a teacher too, to be good in the classroom?
Well, I tell a story some about a young man that I had as a freshman. I won't say his name on the podcast, but he was miserable to have as a freshman. I dreaded to see him come into class every day. I was hoping he would be absent. I would check on Infinite Campus, hoping I had him the last period of the day, and I was just doing a little silent prayer, hoping he would be absent. Then he had PE the class before mine, so if he wasn't absent, I thought, well, maybe he'll turn his ankle and have to go home, won't be in my class the last block of the day. But when I got that young man in my small engine class, he went from being one of my most dreaded students to one of my best students. And it was all because of the way I think that we set that small engine class up, that he realized he had an opportunity to be on our small engine team. And at Rock House County, we were very fortunate. We had a lot of success with our small engine contest. And I think it's so important to set it up like this. The very first day of my small engine class, I would always explain to the students, here are all the prizes and the awards that you can win if you're on this team. I would take them out to our ag shop. We hang banners from our ceiling in the ag shop that has all our state winning teams on it. And I would show them the state winning teams, and I would show them the kids' names on the back. Then I would show them the Carhartt jackets. We would buy them if they were on the state winning team. And I would show them, here's the trophies, here's all the things that you can get if you're on this team. Sure. And for some kids, that's enough. They were fired up and excited and want to be on that team. And I would have lots of students that would take that class just to try to be on that team. But for some kids, that's not enough. The second thing I always try to do is explain to the kids, here's exactly how we're going to pick the team. Kids are only motivated if they know what they need to be motivated for. And I see some programs where where it's almost a mystery how people make teams, how they get selected for competition. And I would explain to my kids, we're going to do these 4 things throughout the semester, and whoever scores the best on these 4 things makes the team. I'm not picking our chapter president. I'm not picking my niece. I'm not picking the principal's daughter. I'm not picking the superintendent's grandson. Whomever is the top scorers on this team makes the team. And then I even took it a step farther. I would always tell them, everybody in the class has to do these 4 things. This is not something extra, not something different. This is just part of my class. And by doing it that way, I think all my kids realized that they had an opportunity to make that team. When I showed that young man that I was telling you about, this freshman that was miserable, when I showed him that Carhartt jacket, and back then they used to give, there was this technical school in Ohio that would give these big $10,000 scholarship checks if you were on the state winning team. And I would show them pictures of our kids getting those scholarship checks. And I think this young man thought, this could be life changing for me to be on that team. And it very well could have been. But he realized the only way he could be on that team is if he worked hard in class. That was the only option. And it totally changed him in my class. He made an alternate on one of our state winning teams. And I really enjoyed the young man that year. Like, he did so well at the end of the year, I gave him an engine from the ag shop. And our assistant principal stopped him when he was leaving school that day, thought he'd stolen it from the ag shop, and called me to check. But I said, no, I gave that to him. But it has totally changed that young man by setting it up right. And you're going to have more success. Sure. I mean, I taught that content in class. It was the content that goes hand in hand with what you should be teaching in the small engine class. So my students had 18 weeks of instruction. It was hard for somebody that was practicing with a select group of kids for a few hours to compete against my kids that had 18 weeks. And it wasn't anything special I was doing, but it's just the fact that I had a class that it grew out of.
Sure. And if you're an outsider and you hear like the small engines class or a small engines team, you're like, what the heck? But think about how many practical skills, math, physics, engineering go into that. It's much more than small engines. We package it up as all of that, but what a life skill you're really teaching students. Yeah.
And one of the things that probably separated our team is we did ag math in that class, Sheldon, just like you're saying. Sure. And our kids had to be able to do that to have a chance of making that team. And it helped them, for sure.
That's wonderful. Mr. Hayes, over your career, you have grown a lot of agriculture teachers from your program. Do you know off the top of your head how many of your students pursued ag ed as a career?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. As far as that pursued it and maybe taught some, I mean, it would be probably in the teens. Okay. I think right now, and I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want to leave him bad, but I think there's 8 right now that are teaching, if you include Matt Koff in that group.
We'll count him.
I think there's 8 that are teaching now. Right
That's
now.
incredible.
Yeah, I'm really proud of them because I think they're making a difference. I think they're working hard. That is one of the things, Sheldon, I'm most proud of, is the job they're doing.
And they are. Your students have become wonderful agriculture teachers, that's for sure, and you helped start them on that path. What would you say to a student in high school or college who's thinking they want to be an agriculture teacher? How would you encourage them?
Well, there's just nothing like it, Sheldon. I mean, it's not easy. You can't come in thinking it's easy, but gosh, it's so rewarding. I'm a competitive person. I love to compete, and there's all kinds of opportunities to do that. But you get to change kids. You get to have a rapport and relationship with kids that probably some other teachers don't have. My wife, and I've got the best wife ever, was a former high school math teacher and guidance counselor. But to be honest with you, Sheldon, she was a little jealous of the rapport that I had with my students. And it wasn't necessarily anything that I was doing special. It's just the nature of the beast as an ag teacher. You have lots of those kids for 4 years. You go to their home, you take them on overnight trips. You spend the school day with them, you spend after school, you spend the summers with them. It's a different situation than most teachers have. And you get to do a variety of things. I mean, within a given day, I might be out up on the top of a building putting on shingles with a group of kids. I might be taking kids to the to an organization there to do a parliamentary procedure demonstration within the community. You just get to know your kids different than other teachers do. And you get to see them grow. I mean, just the growth and successes they have, it's amazing to do that. You can make a difference. I had a guy that I taught with for a long time, and frankly, I didn't think much of him, to be honest with you, Sheldon. He was kind of loud and boisterous, and he went on with all this foolishness all the time. I thought, I don't really have time to listen to all that. But when he retired, they had a stake at Rockhouse County. They'll bring in the library your last day, and they'll give you a rocking chair and allow you to say a few words. But when he spoke that day, my opinion of him totally changed.
Okay.
He said, in every class, you'll have a young man or a young lady in your class that desperately needs you. And he said, you may not even know who that is. He said, but as a teacher, in every class you have, you've got a young man or a young lady in your class that desperately needs you. And I've thought a lot about that. And I think he's right. I mean, and as an ag teacher, you have the opportunity to impact so many people over your career. There's just nothing like it. I mean, there's really not. And people fuss about the pay. I think ag teachers get paid pretty good, Joe. I mean, I was, you know, I mean, in Rockhouse County, you can have a good life on an ag teacher salary, and it's good pay. But just the connections and opportunities you have, and growth you can see from your kids, you can't put a price on that. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Well, and you've continued to influence people even in this current role. I know we said it at the beginning, but you're the program development specialist with the Kentucky FFA Foundation, and you're working daily with early career teachers. And I was an early career teacher once. Like, I know the impact that has, and just saying, I see you and I want to help you and I'll listen to your problems and try to give you some solutions. It makes a difference. And so if a person's listening to this and they're in their community and they're wanting to support their local ag program and be helpful to that ag teacher, what are things that they should do? What can they do?
Well, first, I think they need to try to make contact with them and find out what that specific community and specific ag teacher needs. But there's different ways you can support. I mean, you can support financially, of course. You can also support by just giving your time and being a resource for them. An alumni chapter we had at home, you know, one of their main goals when I was there was to make sure no kid was left out because they couldn't afford to go on trips or go on activities. And, you know, providing funds and doing fundraisers to help with that's huge. So being a part of that, but just helping chaperone, helping judge contests. There's just depending on the community, there's just a wide variety of things you can do. I leaned on my community a lot for help with our FFA contest. I mean, I always used them for that. And, you know, I've just talked just before I got on with you guys today, I was talking to our former 4-H agent, and he was my go-to guy for speeches. You know, he helped us with speeches and job interview every year. You know, have people in your community that have skills that teachers can utilize. So if you have a specific skill, you know, you could bring that and offer that and be able to help a teacher with a variety of activities, which I think would be really good.
I think also, you know, a lot of our teachers don't go back to their hometowns. They go to a community where they don't know a lot of people. And if they are just graduated from college, they're 22 years old, maybe, you know, and have moved to this town, they're in a new school. I would say if you're a leader in a community, you want to be involved, call that teacher, introduce yourself, say, can I connect you? Can I serve as a person who's helpful to you? If you're 22, you just moved to a new town, you have this whole program, you are living bell to bell to bell is your life. And we do need to come alongside those young teachers and help them when we can.
Yeah.
So I have one last question here. What about current teachers or even people who are thinking about being teachers? How do you keep growing as a teacher? You organize a lot of our professional development for agriculture teachers here in Kentucky. What do you see those teachers who are great the whole 27 years in the classroom or longer? They're still doing a great job. What are some of those key characteristics that you see that they all have in common?
Well, you can never stop learning, Sheldon. That's the thing about you. You've got to. I'm a note taker. Everything I do, I take notes from. Every activity that I had while I was in the classroom, every class or unit that I taught, I was
Mhm.
constantly taking notes and trying to learn. When I
Mhm.
first started, we talked about small wages earlier. When I first started teaching small wages, I was scared to death. I thought
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to get these engines put back together. We're going to get them torn apart, and we're never going to get them put back together.
Yeah.
But I just buckled down and studied and worked to try to realize there's things that I didn't know, but there's things you can learn. So you've got to continue to learn. I mean, and going to those PDs, Sheldon, you mentioned that earlier, that's huge. And going to participating and trying to learn when you're at those things, it's really good. Having an attitude that you want to be good. Dr. Byers, I talked about him earlier. He asked me years ago, what did I think separated the average teacher from the great teacher? And I think it's your desire to do a good job. I mean, the teachers that want to do a good job have a desire. It meant a lot to me, Sheldon, that we had a good program. And it probably meant more to me maybe than it ought to, but it was really important to me that we had a good program. And I was going to put in the time and the work that it took to be able to do that. So I think you need to have that. And I think you need to reflect. You've got to be willing to make changes if things are not going well. I mean, I think those are huge things. And it's harder as an old guy. I'm not as, I don't like change as much probably as young people do, but you've got to be willing to make those changes, make adjustments as time goes along. But been willing to work, I've been a lifelong learner and been able to reflect and make changes. I think those would be the three things to have a successful career.
Yeah.
Mr.
Those are
Hayes,
great
it's been
questions.
such a rich conversation. It really has. And we like to ask all of our guests the same three questions as we wrap up our episodes. And we'll start with the first one, which is what keeps you motivated as a leader?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing that keeps me motivated is, I see the impact that the leaders can have, Ruth Ann, in the community, um, across the state. And I think there's a big need for that. And I think that oftentimes the leader is not always the person that's up front. It's not the loudest person. It's not the person always doing the speaking. But oftentimes the leader is the person in the background that allows those other people to have a chance to shine. But I think there's a desperate need for leadership. That void is going to be filled some way. And I think we need to fill it in a good way. So that motivates me to try to do a good job and try to help people because I just think there's a need for that for sure.
Yeah. There definitely is. And I was talking yesterday on a radio show about FFA. If we do anything, we're hoping we're raising great leaders who serve as teachers and on school boards and community leaders. It's some lessons that we take forward to be good citizens. It's really important. Our next question is about philanthropy. We are a philanthropy, the giving of time, talent, and treasure for the good. What's the most meaningful way you have gotten to be involved in philanthropy?
Well, I love that you said time earlier, Sheldon. I think as a teacher, I really try to be giving of my time to my students. And I think that was so beneficial. There was no prize that I could have given them. There was no anything that was more valuable than my time, my willingness to listen to them. I think that is so important. When I was at school, my students, I think, knew I was there for them. And I think that's really important. The older I get, I have the opportunity now to be able to give financially to different organizations. And I think that's so important. My wife and I are very, very proud of the fact that we're able to support the Kentucky FFA Foundation. We sponsor the Wreck Keeping Contest, which is a deer contest to me. I've enjoyed that one for years and years. But to give not only financially, but time and be able to talk with people and work with people, I think is important. I had a teacher call me Sunday and had a question about a couple of things, and I was able to talk with her just for a few minutes. I think that's so important to be able to give that time. I had a former student call me last night. Him and his wife, both former students of mine, want to bring their daughter by to basically show us their daughter. But be able to give them that time, I think is important. But if you can help financially, I think that's important too. My wife and I have made a commitment to do that. We do that. Not only with the foundation, but I just think that's important to be able to do that for sure.
That's right. It all matters. We thank you for that.
Yeah. And it's this culture of philanthropy, it generations and generations are going to have to continue to say, we want to do that. We want to make that a commitment in our lives. And we appreciate what you do. And we know you give so much of your time to different teachers and people in your life. So we appreciate that. Our last question, Mr. Hayes, is kind of a silly one. I will warn you, but it's just could truly be anything. We've heard a little bit of everything in response to this, but what is something you cannot stop talking about?
Well, can I say two things? I mean, I
Yeah.
would say on that. The successes and the impacts that in the community and in the state my former students have had. I mean, I don't have any kids. My wife and I never had kids, but I feel like I've had a bunch of kids. I mean, in our community here at home, nearly everything that I need, I have a former student that can do it. If I need an electrician, if I need a plumber, if I need somebody to come and work on a security system, if I need somebody to run a bulldozer, if I need a lawyer, if I need a banker, if I need an insurance agent, I need an auctioneer. You know, I have people in the community that are doing really good job. I have tons of former students that are teaching, not only teaching ag and the impact we're making. My wife and I went to eat with two of our former students who were married just a week or so ago. And I was almost emotional after we left. I just thought so much of them and the job they're doing. I mean, I just love the successes they're having. They're church leaders. They're having an impact on our community. Now, I don't know if I had any impact on that. I don't think I can. I don't think that I can take any credit for that. But I'm really proud of the work they're doing, whether they're teachers or church leaders, whatever. So I'm really proud of that. And probably the biggest thing that I can't stop talking about, I've just got the best wife ever. And I don't know if you know, I mean, I'm just beyond blessed. It is crazy to me that I've been able to marry the lady I've married. I mean, we're a team. We're together all the time. And in retirement, we're together even more than we were. So that's been really, really good. I've just got the best wife. I had great in-laws. And while people fuss about their in-laws, I had great mother and father-in-law. I've just been beyond blessed to have the wife that I've got, and thankful for her every day.
She is lovely.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Mr. Hayes. And you all are a team. You know, you all travel a lot on your visits together and go places. And we're really very lucky for Marisa too, because we get a 2-for-1 special. She's a former guidance counselor, and she has provided so much insight and support to teachers through her whole career, but especially in your retirement as program development specialist. You're only sort of retired, but we're grateful for both of you and the work you've done. It's tremendous, the impact that you've had, not just in Rockcastle County, but on the ag profession. And we're just lucky to get to work with you. Thanks for all you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys asking me to be a part of this. I always enjoy listening to the podcast. And so I appreciate the time being able to talk to you guys today.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you all for listening to this episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast brought to you by the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Our music is performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.